Acting and fighting? What?
I'm Omri Kadim. I am the artistic director of Combative Theater Company. We're a new theater company dedicated to exploring, reinterpreting, and redefining theater through stage combat. I was doing Shakespeare for a while before I connected to him in a way that excited me beyond the general love of him as an actor. And that was when I got to do The Ghost of King Hamlet in an uncut version of Hamlet, which was a terrible idea, but that meant I got to do the whole 2-page long monologue of King Hamlet, and rather than do him very stately, we played him as Gollum. And I'd never thought of Shakespeare's language as being able to be that dirty and that earthy, and it was a lot of fun to explore it that way. And that's when I started really getting excited for what I could do with Shakespeare here and now. Coriolanus from Man to Dragon was, an attempt to ground a very violent play in violence even more, and use that violence as a storytelling technique rather than just a theatrical tool to fill in some spaces. What we're attempting to do at every turn is create choreography that's not only visually interesting, but that at every point tells you something about the characters that you could not get otherwise, because it's something that the heightened stakes of a fight does to a character that and does for their psyche that nothing else can.
If you go blade first, you'll miss 10 times.
Yeah,
Working with Shakespeare's material has given me a heightened sense of the world. I mean, it sounds a little cliche, but that's what it is. It's, anybody who really grapples with the text can't help but feel awakened in some sense to the poetry of life. I find myself sometimes thinking, I wonder how Shakespeare would describe that. Something that only exists in our modern day and age. I wonder how Shakespeare would talk about that, and that gives me a newfound appreciation for whatever that is, or disgust at it. It's a little bit paradoxical, but it's the two things that I found work best. Is you respect the words and you elevate them and you let them do the work and you trust the words. But at the same time, I found that Shakespeare that works really well is when you don't overly revere them and you don't just stand on the edge of the stage and just speak the words with ease. You have to fuck with the words a little bit. I think if you give yourself permission to fuck with Shakespeare's words a little bit, you can create some magical stuff, and I think he gives you those opportunities. So I'm going to do a few lines from Cominius, the general's speech. It's one of the more quotable pieces of the text, and it's really interesting to hear Coriolanus spoken of and romanticized and politicized even beyond his control. And this is the way it happens, and this is what ultimately leads to his downfall. I shall lack voice. The deeds of Coriolanus cannot be uttered feebly. He stopped the flyers, and by his rare example made the coward turn terror into sport. As weeds before a vessel under sail, so men obeyed and fell below his stem. His sword, death's stamp where it did mark, it took. From face to foot he was a thing of blood, whose every motion was timed with dying cries. Alone he entered the mortal gates of the city, which he painted with shunless destiny. Aidless came off, and with a sudden reinforcement struck Coriolanus like a planet. Now all's his.